understanding modular assessments for high school math, science, and ELA. Just a couple of logistics so that you can know sort of what's happening right now. First and foremost, thank you so much to the New Hampshire Department of Education. They are the ones that are sponsoring this webinar series, and they're allowing us to bring you this at no cost. And a lot of the data coaching webinars that we have been doing are specifically sponsored by them. So we really appreciate their support. Also, you are muted. We cannot hear you, so don't worry about it. Please ask questions as we go. We want to make sure, these particular modulars for high school, with the exception of science, are brand new. So we want to make sure that we're getting all of your questions answered. It will be best for you to put them in the Q&A. Annie will feed me the questions whenever we have a pause or whenever she feels appropriate. If you put them in the chat, everybody can see them, which is great, but she's really checking the Q&A to make sure that we're answering all the questions. We can't, in a webinar format, it's not as easy to have you raise your hand. I know there's a raise your hand feature. It's really difficult in this format to unmute you and answer the questions that way. So we're going to ask you to type them in if at all possible. If you want, maybe at the end when there's a few less people on to raise your hand, we can try to unmute you and allow you to talk at that point, but we'll probably hold off until then.
Okay, Heather, just to let you know, the chat has been disabled, so they can only ask questions in the Q&A today.
All right, well, thank you so much. Number 5 here is a big one. We will send you an email. It will include the PD certificate. It will show you where to find the video and recordings of this, the PowerPoints, any documents that we have available. We are starting to house them in a couple different places. So one of them will be on the Department of Education's Canvas site, and the other one is through the Google Drive that we have here at Demonstrated Success and our YouTube page as well. So there's be a couple places for you to find the information. And then as we're finishing, we will be closing the webinar, and a quick survey will pop up. We appreciate your feedback, so if you have any, we would love to hear it. If you are logging off of this before I actually close out the webinar, the link to the survey will be on your email tomorrow, so please take the time to just fill it out. It's maybe 4 questions. We always want to know how we're doing.
I didn't get that.
My phone
Oh,
didn't.
yeah, no, my email done. Yes, you will get an email tomorrow with the information needed to access the materials.
Yep.
And then Heather, just a quick question. Somebody had asked, with the development of modulars for high school for ELA and math, is the New Hampshire Education Department planning to switch from the SAT for federal compliance to state developed assessments? And the answer is no. We just asked if we could have example problems so that teachers had things to go in for formative assessments, questions of the day, practice questions.
Thanks, Annie. All right, so this is who we are. I'm Heather Jenkins. We also have Annie Wallace from the Department of Education for New Hampshire. We wanted to make sure that you knew that Kate McCaffrey was also the new ELA specialist there for the Department of Education. And so we have our information at the end of this if you need to reach out to any of us.
Okay, thank you for coming, everybody.
Here's my gentle reminder for anything assessment related. And that is really that the whole point of why we are actually doing assessment is to improve student performance. We're not just auditing it. We want to be able to use these assessments to be able to make sure that students are learning, and if they aren't, to be able to improve their skills. So our goals for today are to answer these particular questions. Why use the New Hampshire SAS modular assessments? What are the options for them at your particular grade level? And then also, how can they help you better understand your grade level standards, and how do you get to them? We did have a registration question that I wanted to make sure to answer. It was, how does this data compare to the PSAT or SAT? Really, the bottom line is that all of this information that I'm going to be giving you today on the modular assessments is based on the Common Core standards. So anytime you're looking at the modulars or, you know, having your students take the assessments, they are being basically assessed on the Common Core standards. It's the same with the PSAT and SAT, but these modular assessments are a lot shorter than that. They're based on a little bit sort of smaller areas of instruction, I guess, like domains of teaching for math or what have you. So they're a little bit shorter, but they're related because of the Common Core. This particular, the modular assessments, if you administer them to your students, the New Hampshire Department of Education is not looking at the data for any sort of accountability or any way, shape, or form going to do that. So they're really for your own information and won't necessarily be shared with anybody that way. So hopefully I answered these questions. As for the agenda for today, this is what we're going to be covering. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about the benefits and uses of the modular assessments so that we're all on the same page here. First thing is they're short and they're periodic assessments. All students get the same questions, so it's really helpful for you to be able to target what questions are hard and which ones are not. For ELA and math, the questions are based on the Common Core, like I said. For science, they're based on the next generation science standards. Again, the modular assessments are based on the standard domains, so you can match up to whatever units you might be teaching or whatever content you're teaching in the high school. And you can administer them at any time throughout the year. And last thing is, they can be administered at your current grade level or at appropriate level for students. For the high school modulars, they are listed under 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade, but that does not mean that your seniors can't take them, or if you have an advanced class, that is a 9th grade advanced class, they might be taking it at a 10th grade level. So it's pretty flexible in who can actually take the assessments and which grade level you're administering at. How they're going to help you as teachers is they can help you measure student achievement. We like, as teachers, anything that's automatically scored is great, and the results are almost immediate and they're down to that question level, like I said. They can help you evaluate your program and teaching impact, right? So you're doing all of this instruction, let's see how you're doing and how those particular things that you are teaching are resonating with students, and how well are they able to apply the skills that they've learned. For high school, it's nice that it provides a common assessment for different sections of a class or for different teachers that are teaching the same material. And it also gives students a novel situation for the transfer of those skills learned. Sort of what I was talking about before is a lot of times in our classroom, we're teaching things and we're assessing student learning in a specific way. And this might be just a new and different way for you to see if your students can transfer that information. And here we have provide detailed information for instructional purposes. Because you're able to see down to the question level, the questions are based on the specific standards for Common Core, so you can figure out if there are specific areas or skills that students are missing. And then they're also going to help you gain a deeper understanding of those standards and the depth of knowledge needed for students to be successful. So really, it's a lot for high school is understanding that depth of knowledge and making sure that your students have that. So how can they be used? They can be used as an end of unit assessment or summative. They can be used as a pre-assessment for something that you might be teaching. They can be set up as an assignment in the portal, so it's a formative assessment. And then they can also be used as a homework assignment or group work. This last one I really like as well is you can take the individual questions and you can project them up on your screen, and they can be used as a question of the day or example questions that you work through with students. Or again, if you have students doing group work, it can be projected up there and it can be something that students are working through together. Any questions at this point, Annie?
Sorry, I had to unmute. No, there are no questions at this point. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So what are the options for modular assessments in high school? So for ELA, you have modular assessments that are editing options, informational text, basically your speaking and listening, and your reading literature. So as we go through, I'm going to go through each grade level. So for grade 9, the options that you have is you have a couple of editing examples here. So a couple of modulars for that. You have two modulars for reading informational text. You have a listening modular, and then 2 reading literature modulars. You can see, just to point out, somebody had asked me at one point, what does the 1 of 99 mean? Your students can take these up to 99 times. And so this is just showing you that they're able to take it multiple times. For 10, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. One quick question. Do the modular assessments have to be completed on the New Hampshire secure browser or just on their regular laptops or Chromebooks?
You do not need a secure browser for the modulars.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you do for the summatives. So if you're doing science and you're doing a summative, they need the secure browser. But for any of these modulars, they do not need a secure browser.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The modulars for grade 10, you also have a couple of editing modulars. You have 2 reading informational text, 1 listening, and 3 reading literature assessments. And then for grade 11, 2 editing, 2 reading informational, listening, and 2 literature again. So this just shows you that there's different modular examples at each grade level. So if you were to look at multiple grade levels, you have the option, if you're looking at editing, you have the option of looking at a 9th grade, a 10th grade, or 11th grade editing. They're all different.
Heather, one more question.
Yeah.
Quickly. Can the high school student, can the high school teachers go back and access the lower grades for the modulars?
So if you're talking about any of the high school modulars are available to you no matter what grade you teach and no matter what grade your student is.
Okay, no, I think this is going back to the elementary and middle school grades.
Yeah, you definitely can go back to the elementary and middle school grades, but you do have to change the information for the student in TIDE. So let's say you have a student and you're special ed and you're working with a student who might be, at a 6th grade or a 5th grade level. That student needs to have the year or that grade level that you want to give them the modular selected for their interim test grade levels. So you can choose multiple grade levels. It's not just one. So if you knew you had a student, you could say, okay, I want them to be able to access the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, and then the high school level modulars. And any of those, as soon as you administer it, they would be able to see it. If you don't change that setting for a student, they will only be able to see a modular that is a high school modular. So you can administer it and you can set up a test session, but the student will log in and it will say no test sessions available because they don't have access to see that grade level. So it's
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So those are the ELA modular options. So let's look at math next. So for math, we're looking at, depending on your grade level, you have different options for the modular assessments for high school for the different domains of math. So you can read right here, 9th grade algebra, then geometry, and then number, quantity, functions, and statistics and probability are all bunched into a single modular. For 10th grade, you have functions, geometry, numbers, and quantity, and algebra are together, and then statistics and probability. And then for grade 11, functions, and then number, quantity, and algebra are together. Trigonomic functions and geometry are together, and then statistics and probability. So for grade 9, you can see that the modulars that are available here, you have 3 algebra, you have 3 geometry, and then you have 2 number, quantity, functions, and statistics and probability modulars. Grade 10, you have a couple of functions, you have a couple of geometry, you have 2 statistics and probabilities, and then a numbers and quantity for algebra. There might be another one of those. There are some in the assessment viewing application. They're a little bit mixed up with the Braille modulars. I think there is more than one of the numbers and quantity algebra A. There must be a B, and I just might have missed it because the Braille ones were mixed in. For grade 11, you have a couple of functions. It looks like 3 function modular assessments. You've got 3 of the numbers and quantity and algebra. And then you've got the functions and geometry, a couple of those, and then statistics and probability. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe another statistics and probability modular here. For science, you're based on the earth and space science, life science, and physical science. There's a lot of science modulars that are out there because there also is something that's tested on the New Hampshire SAS summatives for grade 11. So you can see here, there's quite a few of your topic areas for earth, space science. Same thing for life science and physical science here. I can see there's a question, Annie. Maybe not. Okay. All right. So those are your science topics there. I'll just, I guess, pause and make sure that there isn't a question that needs to be answered.
Sorry, there are no social studies modulars in and of themselves, but you can go through and see if some of the ELA ones would be appropriate for social studies to respond to.
Mm-hmm. And that is something that we have in the past provided some feedback to for the Cambium folks is as we maybe have new options for ELA modulars down the road, if they could be aligned with some of the science, or not some of the science, some of the social studies topic areas, it would be really helpful. We have provided that feedback, and we'll continue to do that as well. So if anything new comes out, we are giving that feedback, because you're not the first person to ask that. Okay. When it comes to grade level examples, what is I'm going to show you here just an example of what a math problem would look like, an example of ELA, and an example of science. Annie and I are working on the grade level supplemental documents because the modulars just came out 2 weeks ago. It's taking us a little bit of time to get those together. Biggest sort of a bit of information there is all of the questions are copywritten, so we have to change the questions. We can't do screenshots because these are also used at other states. So we will be getting you a little bit more information that will be forthcoming. We'll try to push it out to everybody who is has signed up and registered for this webinar. So as soon as that information is available, we'll push it out to you. But for right now, I'll show you an example of each type of modular. So this is a high school math question example. And so you can see what is required of students to do on the right. This is not an exact modular. I changed the numbers on it and changed a little bit of the information. But every single one of these questions, what we wanted to show you is that there is a specific domain of math that it's associated with, and then the cluster of standards, and then which exact standard it is. What the benchmark and the classification is for this particular question. For ELA, I wanted to show you an example. This is, you can see right here, it's got a little asterisk. This is technically grade 8, but the high school modulars are set up very similar to this. There is going to be a passage or passages on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, there will be multiple questions that students will need to answer related to those passages. This particular type of question is to show you that there might be multiple parts to a question. And then as the students move through this, they will get maybe 9 or so, maybe 10 questions or so on one set of passages. And then they'll get a whole nother set of passages and more questions to answer for those particular passages. For science, the way that the science is broken up is it's more of a task for them to do. So you have information or passages or something for them to do. Sometimes it could be a some sort of, science experiment that they're doing online, and information that's variable. So you'll get some information for a passage or what general information on the left-hand side that they will need to answer multiple sets of questions on. So this is an example of what they might do on the left-hand side. And then there's different parts to the questions that students will need to complete that would be on the right-hand side of their screen. So this is just a part A. This would be a part B of that same particular task, part C, and part D. And so what ends up happening with the science modulars is, yes, the information that is needed to complete the questions is going to be available to them, but they will also need to use prior knowledge of a specific area of science or a topic area. So what you're teaching them in class, they will basically take that information and, use that to be able to answer these particular science modulars as well. Any questions on that?
No questions at this point.
Great, thank you. All right, let's talk about the assessment viewing application. This is where you're going to be able to go in and view the modular assessment questions so that you can see and preview it before you give a modular assessment to your students. So the way you get there, you're going to go into the New Hampshire SAS portal. This is the link to it. If you go into Google and you type in NHSAS, it's one of the first things that comes up. Every once in a while, you'll get the New Hampshire Department of Education site, but if you're looking specifically for the Cambium site, this is the exact link. It will bring up this particular page. This is the home page. And what you'll do here is you will choose test administration from here, or on the home page, there's another option that's got test administration right on there. You can click right on that. Either way, you're going to be brought to a page that has a couple of, it has 3 sections on it. One of them is preparing for test, one is administering, and one is after the assessment. Under preparing for testing, there is this option for the assessment viewing application. I will tell you, if you are going and you are doing this right now, there are a couple of things that you need to know. Because the high school modulars for ELA and math are relatively new, you may run into the fact that you don't have a login. You can't just go into the assessment viewing application and view it unless you have a login for New Hampshire SAS, and that's in TIDE. So if you have a TIDE administrator, or usually your technical folks in your school are the ones that might be able to set you up with a teacher login. Once you get a teacher login, what will happen is you will have to do what's called a test administration certification. And that basically teaches you how to administer the test. It talks about how everything is a secure site, and that, you know, everything that you need to know about that particular how to administer, and it's required. If you don't do the test administration certification, you can't get access to the assessment viewing application. So again, first things first, you might need a login, then the test administration certification, then you can view these. As you are logging in, again, I'm just reminding you about that test certification course. You will then have a screen where you're able to choose a specific grade level. And as soon as you choose the grade level here, it will bring you and give you all of the options for that particular grade level. As you're looking through the options, if you want to see a particular modular, you click on that, it will open up that modular. And I've just put the top of the screen because I can't put all the questions here, but basically the question would be down on the bottom here, and you're able to click on this next button, or you're able to choose whichever question you would like, and you can start viewing those questions. Right now, what we've seen is if you want to look in the assessment viewing application and you want to scroll through the questions, it's asking you to answer each question, even though you're not actually taking the assessment. So just a heads up, it will want you to choose an answer. You don't have to be correct. It's not going to, you know, tell you if you're right or wrong. It's actually not even going to correct the assessment. But that's something that we're going to share with Cambium as well, because it's a little tricky to kind of scroll through. I'm not sure if it will change, but just so that you understand, you'll need to at least click on an answer to be able to scroll through the questions.
Heather, I do have a quick question before you move on. Oh, good timing. Somebody wanted to know if the question answers on a modular assessment were in the subjective format, IG written answers, not objective ABC types.
Mm-hmm.
And just to let you know, I was able to quickly click through the ELA passages without any trouble.
Great.
So
That's
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in the reading ones, it's either the ABC type, or you have to pick the word or the phrase that best answers whatever question they're answering. There are no written short answers in the ELA ones that I know of.
Yep, that's exactly what I have found as well. So we call them, once we go through all of the modulars, we'll give you some supplemental documents, and we'll tell you how many for a modular are maybe multiple choice, and how many we call like an open question, where they'll need to like click on something, but it's not necessarily an A, B, C, or D. Okay. All right. So now, after you view the modular assessments and you take a peek, if you would like to administer them to your class, you would go into the administering and reporting. just to kind of loop back to what I talked about earlier, if you wanted to project something for your students to be able to answer together or work on as a group, I would do that through the assessment viewing application. I wouldn't necessarily administer the assessment if you just are having kids do group work. But if you want students to be able to actually work through the questions themselves or with a group or as a homework assignment or however you want to do it, this is how you're going to do that. So you're again going to go right onto that portal. And this time, after you choose test administration, you're going down to the section where it's administering tests, and you're choosing the test administrator interface. It's right below the preparing for test and right below the assessment viewing application section. As soon as you are in here, again, you can't administer before you do the test certification, but once you're logged in, you have a couple of options here. You have 3 options to be able to administer, and then you would choose one of those options. What I want to do is I want to go live. It's a lot easier to show you how to do the test administration if I show you right on my screen. So here I am. I'm on that New Hampshire portal, cambiamass.com. I'm going to choose test administration. As I scroll down, here was that assessment viewing application and the test administration certification. And now I'm going to hit right here and choose the test administrator interface. So here's the different ways that you can administer the assessments. First one is to create an active session. If you are a science teacher and you have administered the New Hampshire SAS summatives for science, this is probably what you're used to. Anybody who's administered the summatives, you're used to clicking to start a new session. And then you get your options here. So you would choose whatever subject area you would like to choose. For here, I'm choosing ELA. Here's the options that you have. You have what are called an interim, and then you have a modular. What we're talking today is the modulars. Those are they're based on a specific domain, but you can also choose interims and administer those. It's just going to basically be all of your ELA standards for a specific grade, all of your math standards for a specific grade. So they're not broken down into domain or topic area. So I click the plus for modular, and then I want to choose my specific grade level. Now, the rule of thumb that I always tell people, if there's a plus, use the plus. If you don't, and I just click, yeah, grade 9, then all of my grade 9 modulars for ELA are going to show up over here. If I were to keep it this way and start a live session, students could pick any single one of these that they would like to do, so it gets really confusing. We don't want to do that. So we're going to clear all. Then I would hit the plus and I would choose which one I would like to administer. Maybe I'm doing an informational text. And then you start a live session. So this is where students will need some information to be able to take this assessment. Within Tide, each student is already uploaded. They have a login, and their login includes their first name as it is spelled in the system. So it's basically downloaded from your student information system. But they also have what's called a SACID, which is the specific ID number for them for the New Hampshire SAS assessments. Interestingly enough, it is the same exact information as when your students took the assessments in the lower grades. It does not change every year. It is exactly the same. So it is going to be needed to be given to them. They don't know it. They're not, it's like I think it's a 10-digit number. So test tickets will need to be printed for folks, and rosters will need to be created for you so that you have access to view their reports, like any reports associated with those students. And if you're if you need to print your own test tickets, you need to be rostered to students before you can actually get that information in Tide. There are some general videos that will help you create rosters or for you to understand this right on the resources page on the portal. But if you have any questions outside of this, or you need help because you can't figure out how to print test tickets, or you can't figure out how to roster and you need to know how to do that, please reach out to me. My information is at the end of this, and I can work with you individually if somebody at your school can't help you with that. So
Yes, Heather, they might have to touch base with whomever the I4C coordinator is.
Yep. Great. Okay. So as students are logging in and they have all the information, what's going to happen is they're going to start showing up here under approvals. And you will say, yep, that's you. And you approve each student as they are taking the modular assessment. You can kind of see where they are within their modular assessment. And then as your class is ending, your particular class, if they haven't finished, it's okay. You can hit stop. It will stop the test session. But if they need to finish at a later time, so maybe the next day or the day after, then what you can do is you can open up a test session with that exact same modular, and it will basically start where the student ended. So it's okay to stop it. You're not going to lose the information. But let's say you're giving this ELA modular and students got through 18 of the 25 questions that they needed to get through. The next time they open up that session, it will start them on the next question that they hadn't answered, and they won't be able to go back and change anything before then because of the test security. So they can start from where they ended and continue working through the assessment. So I can click stop here and the test session is done. And just, I'm going to leave this way and I'm going to go back in again and show you another way. So that was an active session. I have an active session that's showing up here because it is something that I created as an upcoming session with a date range so that I could use the same test session ID over multiple days. Some teachers like this. This is very confusing for some teachers. So I'm going to go through it and let you know that it's an option for what you can do for a test session. So here I am. I'm in the upcoming sessions. The difference with this type of test administration is I'm able to schedule a session for the future and have it sitting there waiting for me to join whenever I need to join it for my students. So if I have multiple sections of something, I won't have to create new test sessions for every section. I just have one test session and I join it each time my classes are in my room. So you schedule the session and it's up to a 2-week window. So I'm able to say anytime today, I could start, if I said, nope, I'm setting this up for next Monday, and I want it to go for the whole week, for Monday through Friday, I could do that. And I could say, okay, let me choose my math. Maybe I'm teaching math. Again, I have the interim opportunity here as well, but I'm doing math. Maybe I teach a geometry class. And so I'm choosing my geometry. It does want me to name the session because I might have multiple test sessions available to students because maybe I have different classes and I want to choose a different modular for each one. So you just need to have a unique name for this. So the session name, I might just say is Geometry B. And maybe I have a specific name of my class that I want to put it in so that I remember, okay, so this is for every one of my sections for this particular class. And then I save the session. This can be given to students, but what I want to show you here, oh, I started it on today. No, I started it next week. So this is interesting. Oh, please, I'm going to go here. Maybe I didn't do that. what happened was, what I meant to do is have it show here, and then I was going to show you how once it actually goes into the time frame, it becomes an active session. So because this had today's date, it is showing up in my active sessions. So what happens here is the biggest issue that teachers have with creating the upcoming session and being able to use a date range is that their students come in, they're starting to log in, and their students say, there's no test sessions available, I can't see anything. And that's because it's not, even though it's in my active session tab up here, I have to join it each time. So I'm choosing a specific session to join. So as soon as I join it, the students have all of this and I can start approving them. So a lot of teachers forget to join that particular session. And so that's the biggest issue that's had there. But as soon as I stop it, even though I have this session available to me for a week, students cannot test without me joining it. So it's a little bit more secure in that way as well, even though you've got it open for a specific amount of time. The last way that you're able to administer a modular assessment is with this tab for what's called an at-home assignment. So you can create these at-home assignments and you can use them for homework assignments if you would like, but you could also use them, even though it's called an at-home assignment, it can be used with students sitting right in front of you in the classroom. They do not need to be at home to be able to do it. But what this allows is for this session, you don't have to approve anybody. You give them the link. It automatically, they click the link, it brings up the login page, and they can work on this in their own time. If it's a homework assignment, they can work on it at midnight and you don't have to approve anybody, or they can be working on it in front of you in the classroom, and you can just make it clear, like, this is when you're going to be using this link. My expectation is you're not doing this at home, or whatever, however you want to work with it. To create the assignment, this is also up to a 2-week window. So it's nice if you want to give a homework assignment and you want to say, okay, this is a homework assignment and I want it to be for next week. The session is open next week. You can choose whichever thing that you would like to choose. I'm choosing science specifically. I wanted to make sure to include science on this because even though it is a modular, the science is always looked at as what's called an interim. It's very confusing, but just know it's like a modular for you. You're able to choose any specific topic area that you would like. They are all technically listed under grade 11, but it doesn't mean that they're just grade 11 science topics for you. But if I wanted to do maybe an earth-based science, or if I wanted to do another one, you choose this, you name the session, and you save the assignment. This is what you can put up on your, if you use Canvas for your high school, or if you use Google Classroom, you can put this right up and students can access it this way. I don't need to do anything to let students in. They're able to get in on their own whenever they would like. If I find that students are not doing maybe what I would like them to be doing, I can delete this at any time. And then that way they can't access the test anymore, even though the link is up on the Google site. So there's some pros and cons to the at-home assignment, obviously. It is nice that you don't have to approve anybody, but it also takes a little of the test security away because students can get in whenever they would like. So those are the different ways to administer the modular assessments. So I just want to pause here and see if there's any questions on administration.
You basically answered it in terms of why the science modulars are called interims.
Yeah, it's confusing. I would say yes. So great. Okay. So when it comes to the reports and where you access the information on how students are scoring, is you're going straight to the portal again. But just so you know, the information is almost immediate for the results. Every once in a while, it will take just a little bit of time, but it's not days for sure. Again, down to that question or standard level. And then, you know, whenever we're looking at data, it's used to assess student understanding. If you have any groupings that you need for teaching for kids that need reteach or not, and then you can dig deeper into what the student's mastery level of the standards are. So
One quick
yeah,
question. If you give an at-home test in class, could you just delete the session once class is over, but it
yes,
wouldn't remove the scores that you would get for the students?
exactly. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then you could open it up again and do the same thing the next day, and they start where they left off. Yep. Okay, so now to look at the reporting, we're going right to that page. We're choosing test administration again, and then that after testing, we're looking at this reporting. What you do is it will have you log into a reporting portal, and it will ask you which assessments you're looking for. We're choosing those benchmark for ELA and math. Keep in mind though that interim, that the science will be listed underneath interim. So that's where you'll access the science information. I just want to make sure and reiterate again, if you're not rostered and you don't have students that are rostered to you, as a teacher within the New Hampshire SAS portal, you will see 0 results here if you don't have rosters created for you. So it's okay if you don't have the rosters, you can still administer the assessments. The information is there, you just can't see it yet. So if you find after you administer it, like, whoa, wait, there's something wrong with the rosters, that's okay. The rosters can be updated or changed, and the information will be there for you. The information is always available to anybody in your school who is a school test coordinator or people in your district that are district test coordinators. They will be able to see it even without rosters. But the best way to do it is for your students, for your particular classes to be rostered to you so that you can view the information, look at the data, and it can help you inform instruction. Okay, so as you choose the information provided you have the rosters, you're going to go to your dashboard and it will give you this. Science will show up if you have science, but this is where all the places that you can choose which benchmark, it says benchmark, those are your modulars, are located. So you just choose whichever one you want. And then you choose which particular test you want to be able to see for high school. So if you have a specific modular, you click on that modular, and then it will bring up a page that looks like this. This is happens to be, I believe, an ELA modular, but it will show you basically, I took all the student names off because I can't show you that, but it will give you information about the 5 items that they scored the best on, the 5 items that they perform the worst on, and then all of the items will be listed across the top here. So the only time that you don't see this information here is if a modular is less than 10 questions. It won't show you the 5 best and the 5 worst. Science modulars also do not show you the 5 best and the 5 worst. You'll just see the science, the questions, and then how they performed on each one of the questions. Okay. If you wanted to look at a specific question, This is where you're able to click on that little number there, and it will pop up with the information about what the question looked like and what it was asking. And it will also give you the information on what the correct answer was. It will also give you what specific standard and cluster and all of that information that is related to that particular question. In addition, you can scroll through our students' results the same way. So if I click on the number here, it will bring up that question and what that student put as an answer for that question. And you can just scroll through how that a particular student answered each question. I can download, or you go to a print and you download any of the results that you would like into Excel, and then you can do anything you want for reformatting or taking a peek at it in Excel. This is pretty much where I live when it comes to the modular assessments. I like to look at the data this way, but then I'm also in the reporting portal to refer back to say, okay, remind me of what that question was again. Let's take a look. What is the correct answer frequency or the percentage of points scored on a particular assessment or a particular item. One thing that I would like to just point out is as we're looking across here, you can see for a specific question, this is perform the best or the worst. So let's just go over here for this 1 through 8. This is the question number for the students, and this is the points possible for that. Some questions are worth 1 point, some are worth 2. So I just caution you on anything that's worth 2 points here. What I want you to understand is this is not 83% of the points were scored. It's actually half that. Because it's worth 2 points. Right? So this isn't an exact correct answer frequency because it's worth 2 points. These are like 83% of the students got this particular question correct, but you know, this is half that. So about 41, 42% of students scored some of those points, right? Because somebody could score 0 points, kids could score 1 point, or they could score 2 points. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at any of the information and trying to decipher how students are doing. Make sure you check on the possible points there. Any questions that we have before we move on to the end?
There's nothing at this point.
Thank you. All right. I wanted to point you in the direction of some other New Hampshire SAS resources for you. There's a lot of them. I did kind of pare this down because for high school, we're working on figuring out if they're going to provide some of the resources that were at the lower levels, like performance level descriptors or vocabulary lists. So I did, if you were in any of the other webinars for this, there's a couple of resources that we're hoping to get. So we'll share any of that with you as it comes available. So the resources are on that portal. They're under the resources tab, or they're at the bottom of the page for any page that you might be on the portal. As soon as you are on the resources page, you can search any way here. You can search by resource type. You can search for the keyword here. You can use this drop down. But here are some of the resources that they have. So there are some tutorials to help students on the New Hampshire SAS assessment. So there's a students and families section. There are practice tests, not a lot of practice tests right yet for the high school. It's mostly the science practice test, but it allows students to kind of go in and take a look. But the next one here is the item type tutorials. This is nice because it gives, these are examples of them: an equation response, evidence-based selected response, a grid item. So some of the things that students are asked to do on the portal, because it's a novel situation for them, they might not be used to how to answer specific questions. So going through some of these tutorials is helpful for you and for your students to see what might be expected of them. And then that student practice site, again, There's some tests there, but not a ton yet for high school. So we're hoping to get some of those in there. I see there's a question.
Yes, it's asking what standards are assessed in 11th grade science. There are, for all the NGSS standards, there's a mixture of what's being assessed. So there are some earth science standards, and I know that not everybody takes earth science. So the best thing is if you can go through the modulars and see what's offered there, or go on the practice tests and see what's
Yes.
offered there.
And I want to show you before we go. So this is what you're going to gain access to. This is the Google Drive and the handouts. We do have the high school modular example document here for science. Because those have been around for a while, we were able to do this. So I want to just kind of help you here and point you in the direction specifically for the high school. So here are the high school modular science topics. And what this is, I'm just going to give you just a quick understanding, and I'll let you look at this in your own time, is for earth space science, this is telling you what your specific performance expectations are in some of your topic areas for earth space science. And this is the, this purple here with the check marks is what has been in the past assessed on for the New Hampshire SAS summatives. It has 2018-19 on here, but I don't believe it's changed. So this is your performance expectations. Here's some modulars attached, and then this is what's assessed on the summative. Same thing for life science. You'll get this information for life science. And then again, how it's related to the summative and physical science. So take a peek at this document. If you have questions about this, definitely let me know. But this is the type of thing that we're hoping to also provide for ELA and math.
Nothing more at this point, but I did want to let any teacher who's teaching math, that especially Algebra 1, you can go back to the practice tests and choose grade 7 or 8, and you can get some basic algebra problems from there that would suit an Algebra 1 student.
Sounds great. All right, so just to finish up, we have one last webinar that's in this series for understanding modular assessments, and that's for grades K through 2. Really, the modulars are grades 1 and 2, but so if you have any colleagues that you know that might be interested in those, you can definitely let them know. Another set of webinars that's going to be coming up is understanding standards and depth of knowledge, and those are going to be in the grade spans as well. So that's the next data coaching webinar series that will be coming up starting in early November. Some emails are going to be going out on those relatively soon, so keep an eye out for those. And then again, we do want your feedback. A specific survey will pop up when I close out this webinar, but it will also be a link on email tomorrow. This is me, Heather Jenkins. We have Annie that has been with us today. And if you have some ELA questions, Kate is your person. So I see there's a couple questions. So I'm gonna.
Yes, it was about the recording, that yes, they can use it with others, and the slide deck will be available to you. And you can find it both through the link into the folder that you get tomorrow, and then we're also putting it up on the New Hampshire Department of Education Canvas site. So if you email me, I can give you the public link for that.
Sounds great. Thanks, Annie.
You're welcome.
All right. I'll hold on for maybe another little tiny bit of time. So if you have any questions, frantically type them so that I can answer them. Other than that, we thank you so much for coming today, and we appreciate your time. If you have the need or the want for your particular school to have a little bit more customized support for the modulars, I am the lead for the New Hampshire Department of Education's sort of school support as well. It's a free program. We're able to provide some general help and understanding for the modular assessments. The Department of Education really wants to make sure that people are aware of how to use these. So you can contact me directly if you feel like your school would like a little bit more information, and we can see if it's something that I can help you with.
Yes, and people will get a link tomorrow with a copy of the slides and your certificate of attendance.
Yes. Yep. Great. All right. As usual, thank you so much, Annie. And again, thank you everybody for coming today. If you have anything further, definitely reach out and we'd be happy to help you.